one thing, I can't. I've lived in the home recently, and I'm legally forbidden from doing so, but I also know a lot of the stuff that's wrong with that house, and I don't want to touch it. That's going to be a huge report. Now, as far as realtors go, I have a good working relationship with quite a number of realtors. I probably have 400 realtors' phone numbers saved on my phone right now, and I get the same people that call me time after time. I really enjoy working with someone that I know. We can't seem to get this pulled up.
It's not going to let me click on it.
And on occasion, I'll have clients that I'll go do an inspection for, and then not necessarily because of what's in the report, but sometimes it is, they'll end up not buying that property. But then when they find another house they like, they'll tell their realtor, hey, I want you to call Patrick. That's who I want to do my inspection. I've I've had realtors tell me, I want you to inspect the house that my client is buying, not the house my client is selling, because you're very fair and impartial, but you don't miss anything. So there's pros and cons there. I do have a lot of times when a client will refer someone else to me, a friend, a family member, and they'll say, hey, this is the guy that did our inspection. And there's only been one inspection that I've done out of almost 800 where I actually knew the client. I had personal knowledge of the client before the appointment was scheduled. It was a young lady that I went to some college classes with several years ago, and her name popped up, and I was still a fairly new inspector at that point. I'd only been doing it for about 8 months or so. And so I contacted the realtor. I said, is it okay for me to do this because I know this person? And they said, yeah, you're fine. They said, as long as they're not the ones selling the house, because then you get into the possibility of a conflict of interest. Did that answer your question, or?
Yeah, that makes sense. So if they're the seller, then there's a conflict of interest and there's rules and regs that prevent it. Otherwise, a little more open.
Yeah, because I could go in there and I'd say, oh no, this house is fine, everything's beautiful. And then somebody buys the house, and in a couple of years, they discover they've got a huge, massive problem. That actually happened with a friend of mine. He purchased a home outside of Big Spring out in the country on 20 acres. And the inspector that they got, the sellers actually found the inspector. The sellers were real estate agents who are now retired and moved away. So I'm not going to mention their names, but they said, oh, we can get an inspector to come to Big Spring. We know a guy. So my friend's realtor said, okay, that's fine. Go ahead and call him. Well, this was a 5,000 square foot house, 2 stories. It turns out it was an old Army Air Corps barracks that had been renovated. And the inspector was there. And of course, I didn't know anything about home inspecting when he bought this house 7 years ago. So the inspector was at the property about 1 hour and 15 minutes. Now, knowing what I know now, a 5,000 square foot house that had been renovated as poorly as that one had, and had as many issues as that had, that inspector should have been there about 4 to 5 hours. Turns out the guy didn't even go into the crawl space. We found out when my friend got ready to sell the home that there's actually a 20-ton hydraulic bottle jack under the floor joists in the kitchen holding up that end of the house. So yeah, he's looking at something like $7,000 in foundation repairs. So when his house came up for sale, he said, hey man, we've got somebody that's interested in buying the house. Do you want to do the inspection? And I said, no, I can't. I said, you're my friend. I lived in the house. I am legally prevented from doing so. So any other questions? Anything at all? It appears we're not going to be able to get the inspection report to load, but I'm sorry for that. We'll work on it. Maybe at the live meeting next month, I can print out some and just kind of pass them around so y'all can look at them and keep them. Marie just reminded me of something. There's terminology that I'll use in a report because I am not a termite inspector. I am not certified for it. I have a friend that's been in the pest control business for 35 years, and he's given me a lot of pointers and showed me some things. So I really kind of know what to look for, but I will never say the word termite in a report. That's a 4-letter word. I will say, inspector discovered evidence of possible wood destroying insect activity. Recommend a pest control specialist to be consulted. What that means is there's something that's going on here that might be termite related, but I'm not allowed to say it is. And even if I do find something, it could be 10 or 20 or 30 years old. Because I mean, a lot of us are looking at houses that are going to be about 70 years old. So all the houses, the way the pest guy put it to me is, we live in West Texas. We have subterranean termites. Every house either has termites, has had termites, or it's going to have termites. So, but you'll never see me put the word termite in a report. And mold is the same way. Mold is another 4-letter word. I would say evidence of a possible fungal growth. And of course, if I do an inspection for you and you have any questions at all, you can call me or text me pretty much anytime. If I'm not asleep, I'll respond. What else?
Hey, Pat, can I catch you right quick and ask you a question on the termite deal?
Yes, sir.
My name's Garrett. Good to meet you.
Hi, Garrett.
Whenever you're,
Garrett.
Hi, guys. Whenever y'all are, inspectors are looking for the termites, I mean, where is it that you find the evidence most of the time? Because it's usually in the studs. I mean, are you using like a borescope to look through like switch covers or something?
No, usually the way I find it is if the home has a crawl space and I'm under the house, there'll be termite tubes. You know, it looks like a little dirt column sticking up from the ground. And sometimes they'll go up the piers or up the foundation walls, but sometimes they'll just be kind of everywhere.
Right.
And as long as I don't see them going all the way up to and making contact with wood, then I just say, you got some possible termite or possible wood destroying insect activity. You need to get a termite guy to come by and take a look. And they'll usually recommend a treatment for the house. I mean, if I recommend a roofer come out, he's going to say you need a roof. You know, if I recommend a termite guy comes out, he's going to charge you for the inspection. He's going to say you need a treatment. That's just how it is. But every now and then you can notice the termite activity in the drywall, in the sheetrock. The finish will be cracked and kind of spider webbed. And if there's any places where the paint has fallen off, you can see what looks like dirt in there. And that's actually the termite poop, because what they do is they eat the paper in between the paint and the gypsum board. So then the paint is not attached. So if you run your fingers over the wall, you can actually hear it. It'll sound different, because if you run your hand over the wall in a place that's not affected by termites, then it has a more solid sound. But when you run over that, it sounds like you're running your fingers over a piece of paper.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Anybody else got a question?
Yeah, I want to piggyback off Garrett's question. So you can't say mold, you can say fungal, whatever, but how do you—
Fungal growth.
Fungal growth. Is it all visual, or is there some sort of other identifier for mold?
Oh, that's a good question. Since I'm not certified for mold, the only thing I can do is visual functional tests on the property. Let's say you've got a swimming pool. You want me to do a pool inspection? Okay, I can do that. I'm going to walk around the pool clockwise. I'm going to walk around the pool counterwise. I'm going to lift the skimmer covers. I'm going to look at all of the exposed plumbing. I'm going to look at the pump, the filter, the wiring, everything. But I'm not going to turn any valves. I'm not going to switch anything on or off. If the homeowner is there or their representative is there, you know, their realtor or their friend or whatever, and they want to do that while I observe, then I can document that as well. But if I go out to a house and the water heater has blown out, I get in writing that the realtor gives me permission, or the homeowner gives me permission to light the water heater, because I'm not permitted to turn any valves or use anything other than normal controls that you would use on a daily basis. So everything I'm going to do is going to be non-invasive. I am wanting to get a borescope camera so that I can put it down inside of septic tanks. As it is right now, I hate to admit this, but I strap my battery-powered headlight, I strap it to my phone, and I put my phone down inside the septic tank and twist all the way around taking pictures, and then when I pull it out, take the headlight off and wipe everything down with a Clorox wipe. So until I get a borescope camera, that's the way I have to do it, because I do try to be as thorough as I can. But you're right on the mold. I'm not doing any specific testing. I've found mildew, the white fuzzy stuff. I've found black mold. I've found green mold. But again, I'm not allowed to say that word. It's a 4-letter word. I can say evidence of fungal growth. Recommend that a qualified professional of your choosing be consulted. Of course, a lot of times you can just take some bleach and spray the mold down. Like if it's in a shower stall or something, you can just spray it down with some bleach and it's fine. But if it's in a crawl space under a home, if it's inside a wall or an attic where it's exposed and I can see it, then I have to recommend that you have a professional of your choosing. I can't recommend anyone either. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
What about like a stray or a dead animal that'd be under the houses?
I have found that. I've encountered dead animals and live animals. With dead animals, I've discovered them in all states, from a fresh carcass all the way to a completely desiccated, dried out skeleton where there was nothing left but bones and hair. What I usually do is I will take photos. I will text the realtor, the buyer's agent, because that's who contacted me. It's either the buyer's agent or the buyer themselves. I will contact them and I say, this is what I found. And we need to reach out to the homeowner or the seller's agent and find out if they want me to do anything with it or if they want me to leave it. I do keep heavy neoprene gloves and super heavy contractor grade trash bags, so that when I do find something unpleasant like that, I can take my small shovel, put it in a bag, tie it shut, and get rid of it. I've never had anybody tell me, oh, just leave it there. They always say, oh, would you please? Because I find birds and frogs in swimming pool skimmers. I find birds and squirrels. I found a mummified squirrel in a chimney just last week here in Odessa. And I always will take a picture, and sometimes it's kind of gross, but I'll take a picture and I'll either text or call the realtor and say, hey, I found a dead so-and-so. Would you like to see it? Sometimes they'll say, no, I don't want to see it. Just take care of it. Well, I need that in writing, pretty much. So I'll tell them, okay, you text me that. Tell me it's okay, and I'll take care of it. I found the skunk I found was alive. So we agreed to part ways post haste. He went one way, I went the other. Normally I find bugs, cockroaches, if there's been a water leak under the house, spiders, cats are pretty common. Found a dog one time, looked pretty scared, so I just left it alone. I went back another day and finished the crawl space. But
2 big rattlesnakes one time.
2 big rattlesnakes. They were hibernating, so they were moving very, very slowly. They didn't even uncoil. But needless to say, that was the end of that inspection.
In that area.
Yeah. But yeah, I do actually find carcasses or bones or something from time to time. It's actually fairly common. I'd say when I'm in a crawl space, I find it probably 10% of the time.
Like you call it like the dog catcher or
I didn't mess with them at all.
Like other companies to come deal with this rodent,
like the skunk or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What I did was
bobcat.
I never found a bobcat. That would be pretty scary. Now I've found a dog that looked very scared, and I exited the crawl space immediately and got in contact with the buyer's agent, who contacted the seller's agent. And then the homeowner actually called me directly and said, yeah, that's my dog. So I said, okay, well, he looked scared, so I left him alone. And they said, that's fine, he can be under there. I did one in West Odessa where I found the skunk, and I exited the crawl.
I'm losing connection.
Come back to us, Pat.
Somebody lose a connection.
Yeah, he'll have to reboot. I don't know if y'all noticed earlier, I had to reboot.
Yeah, I probably have to reboot my router.
Let me text them and let them know that they're not on.
Sorry about that, folks.
Okay.
There we go.
Marie's been having internet issues.
I think everybody has.
Does anyone else got any more questions?
You were talking about the skunk when
Oh.
you went out.
Okay. I got in contact. I exited the crawl space immediately, reached out to the buyer's agent, who got in touch with the seller's agent. And they said that they would contact animal control and let me know when to come back, which I will usually do at no additional charge unless it's really out of the way. But my client said, you know what? You saw most of the crawl space. You saw all the plumbing. That's what I was concerned with. So I'm satisfied. You don't have to come back. So they said, let's just get rid of the skunk and call it done. Did that answer your question?
I forgot what you said.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, so you called the animal service or
Yeah.
no?
Animal
Okay.
control. I don't call them directly.
Animal
I let the
control.
realtors take care of it, or the homeowner. And then if they want me to, I'll come back later. But this guy was like, no, you've done enough. I'm happy. I don't need you to come back.
Is there anything that you know that we can do to get our houses ready for you?
Ah, yes. Very good. Something that a lot of people, I don't think they do it on purpose, but I'll show up to a property and some of the utilities won't be on. So if I'm going to do a pre-listing inspection for you, you've got a property that's finished that you want to put up for sale, make sure all the utilities are on. And a lot of times what happens is people will renovate an old home and they'll really shine it up nice. There'll be lots of new drywall and crown moldings and flooring. And I don't think they ever put anyone in the attic of the house. What I find a lot of times is electrical connections that have not been made inside a junction box, or junction boxes that don't have a lid on them. Or yeah, that happens a lot. I mean, I would say that open junction boxes and improper electrical connections are probably my most common write-ups. And this is even on beautiful homes. If somebody has gone in there thinking that they were pretty handy, then they'll get in there and start adding lights and, oh, honey, I want a ceiling fan over here. And there's no support brace for the ceiling fan. But, you know, whatever. The most common thing that I find is electrical stuff that's just not quite where it should be. As far as y'all getting houses ready, trim the trees back to where they're not touching the house. Look and see if the branches have messed up the shingles. Of course, you're probably going to be looking at roofing anyway. Just kind of give the house a once over yourself and be critical. You know, check every light switch, check every faucet, and see if the toilet is leaking around the base when you flush it. A lot of that stuff you would probably want to have fixed anyway, but I know how it can be when you're working on a lot of big things. Some of the little stuff can slip past you. So if you can kind of look at it with fresh eyes, if you haven't been to the house in a little while, go around and look at it again and say, I've got an inspector coming soon. What are some of the things he's going to be looking for? And that's the kind of stuff that's going to be. Do the doors latch when you close them? Can you open at least one window in every sleeping room? Because you have to have two forms of egress. I've been in some of these houses with interesting architecture, and they have fixed pane windows that don't open and only one door to go in and out of a bedroom. I have to write that as a serious safety consideration, a serious safety hazard. And really, unless you're going to cut in a door or put in a window, then whoever's going to buy that house is going to have to be made aware that that's a safety hazard. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
When you, Pat, when you talk about the light switches, you talking about functionality, or are you talking about what controls what, or what do you mean when you say check the light switches?
Make sure that when you flip that switch, that the ceiling fan comes on or goes off. Because a lot of times, well, I shouldn't say a lot of times, but I've seen it before where someone will wire up they'll take down a light and put up a ceiling fan. And what they didn't realize was that circuit is not switched. It runs straight off of the panel. So when you flip the switch, nothing happens. It doesn't turn it off.
I have one of those right now, and I'm going to have to figure out what to do with it. So,
Yeah.
there is, yeah,
But
some weird
a lot-
stuff some weird stuff that people will do in the house before I get into it. My current flip house has some, like you said, handyman electrical done to it that I'm having to correct.
Yeah, usually what I find, it's not the house's fault. It's what the people did to the house. Now, you're talking about switches and stuff that don't do anything. A lot of these older homes had a evaporative cooler, swamp cooler up on the roof.
Yep.
So in the hallway, you'll have 2 or 3 switches, for pump and fan speed and stuff like that. Well, of course, that's gone. It's been gone for years, but they will leave those switches. And I've even seen new switch cover plates and new switches installed with no wires going to it.
Yep. And I think, and so this house that I'm doing right now too, I think it's okay. You can still just put a blank over it, cap everything inside the box, disconnect from the panel itself. Not that you got to like go pulling the wire out of the whole place, but I think that's the appropriate way to do it, is at least put a blank on it. Is that right?
There we are. I'm afraid you're going to repeat that. We lost our internet again for
It's
15
coming in and
seconds.
out.
Okay, yeah, I'll say it again or ask it again, because same thing on this house. Used to be swamp cooler in the hallway, like you just said, had the double gang switch where it was, a pump and fan. Of course, it's upgraded to HVAC system now. So that I'm just going, everything that I've looked up on code, and even my electrician, he's like, yeah, you can just cap it in there and put a blank on top of it and you're good.
Yep.
Right. That doesn't.
Yeah, you can put a blank over it. You can put a blank over it if you want to, which is what a lot of people do. Or you could even remove the wiring running to those switches and just patch over it with drywall.
Yeah, it's in a real pajiggity spot. I think I'm just going to leave it. So,
I understand.
The other deal I was going to ask you too is, so there was another weird deal that a previous homeowner had added in. They'd moved the sink over, the kitchen sink, obviously from the original build somehow. And I noticed, got into pulling drywall off and stuff like that. And where they moved it over about 2.5 foot, the pipe where they brought it over and everything like that. Number one, they're not using DWD fittings. But number two, also, there's not a good downhill slope to it. But I'm going to correct that. But that's why I was even asking, like, do you use borescope and stuff like that? Because a lot of that stuff doesn't get seen unless you basically bust the drywall off.
Yeah, I can't do anything invasive or destructive, and I can only do what's visible. So sometimes people do some kind of janky repairs, and or upgrades, if you will, and they'll pull down the drywall to move a sink to relocate it somewhere, and then you can see because they're using the same connection inside the wall, and they've just got the drain running horizontal. But if it's hidden and you can't see it, then the only way I'd be able to see it is if they didn't put the drywall back up. And I see that quite a bit too. Nice, pretty new cabinets or a beautiful new vanity in a bathroom, and you open the doors and check the drain, and there's studs and the sheetrock on the other side of the wall, and you can see everything inside the wall.
Yeah. Thank you.
But yeah, as far as running a bore scope, that's going to be something like a plumber would have to do. It's just beyond the scope of what I can do.
10-4, appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
But the only invasive thing you can do is if like the crawl space access is screwed shut.
That's true.
Or the attic access.
Marie just reminded me, sometimes people will put nails or screws in their scuttle hole cover for the crawl space or for their attic access. And with permission, I will pull out a nail or take out some screws or something. And but I've even had people tell me the crawl space access is in that closet, but we had it carpeted. Okay, what do you want me to do? Rip up the carpet? Okay, I'm going to need that in writing. Text it to me, and then I'll pull the carpet up and I'll get in there. You know, take the screws out, whatever I need to do. But anything else, like when I test a HVAC, if it's a gas furnace, I'm going to take a photo of the whole thing. I'm going to look at the gas line coming in. I'm going to look at the exhaust going out. I'm going to check the filter. I'll get a photo of the burner and the heat exchanger in operation. But when I check air conditioning, I'm basically just checking to see if it makes any weird noises at the compressor or at the indoor unit. And then I'm going to check for temperature drop. I'm not allowed to connect gauges and check pressures or anything else because that's considered invasive. Anyone else?
I got another one for you. It froze up again. Can you hear me, Pat?
Give him a few seconds.
Yeah, he's going to have to restart.
Theirs works a lot faster than mine. It took mine about 5 minutes to get back on.
Yeah, there we are. Especially
the computer or phone.
It's a laptop. It's just we've got some poor internet service over here in Kermit today. It keeps going in and out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Normally it's good. That's why I agreed to do it from here instead of from my phone, because she usually has a better connection than I do. The thing I wanted to mention to y'all is a lot of these houses from the 1930s up through the 1980s may be equipped with a Federal Pacific Electric circuit breaker panel. Some insurance companies are denying coverage now on homes that are equipped with a Federal Pacific panel. Federal Pacific made the stab lock panel and the no arc panel. Many electricians and insurance companies label them as problematic or hazardous or even dangerous.
So if you come across
Basically, if you buy a house for a flip or a reno and it has a Federal Pacific panel in it, you need to budget for an upgraded panel because anybody that buys it is going to be asking you to do that for them. I mean, unless they're a cash buyer, the insurance company and the mortgage company is going to be saying we need a new electric panel in that house. I see it pretty often now. A few years ago, people would still buy the houses, and here in about the last 8 months or so, every time I've run across one of those panels, it has had to be changed if they were using a mortgage lender. So Federal Pacific Electric, stab lock, and no arc panels. There are also some other obsolete panels that are still around. I ran into a uh,
Uh-oh.
Just me or? Yeah.
Well, next month, if we have our in-meeting thing, if that works out, then we're going to try to also Zoom it at the same time.
Mm.
Y'all are back,
All
Pat.
right.
You're muted.
There we go.
there we are. Okay.
Just name the brand again. Bill.
Thank
Tell
you.
them what
The what I was saying was the Federal Pacific Electric. It'll say FPE on the cover if it hasn't been painted or peeled off. Federal Pacific Electric stab lock or no arc panels have been labeled as problematic or even dangerous by insurance companies and mortgage lenders. So if you have a home that has one of those panels, they're almost certainly going to ask you to replace the panel. So that's something you're going to need to budget for. There are some other obsolete panels that I've run into here recently. One was a Bulldog Electric Pushmatic panel. I'd never seen one before. There were 4 circuits for the entire house, and it was only wired for 30 amps for the whole house. Yeah, the house was built in 1938. Another one I ran into was a, oh, I can't remember what it was called now. Magnatrip. That's what it was, a Magnatrip panel. And it had color-coded breakers on it. I'd never seen one before. I took a photo of it, and I sent it to the guy that taught the class when I did my home inspection training. And he said he had only heard of them and never seen one and wanted to know if I would let him use it in his training. Of course, go ahead. But when a lot of us are going to be looking at homes that were built, like I said, between 1930 and 1980. And so there are thousands of those Federal Pacific and other obsolete panels still in use. So if you're going to do any upgrades whatsoever, you need to be considering that panel upgrade. And a lot of times people will change the panel, but they don't necessarily update all the wiring in the house. That's acceptable. That's okay. It's not the most desirable, but it is acceptable.
So you say up to 1980, does that mean generally anything after 1980, the panels are good?
About 1982 or so, I think, is when the lawsuit against Federal Pacific was filed. I would have to look to be certain, but I think it was 1982. After Federal Pacific lost the lawsuit, of course, they stopped production of all residential breakers and panels. So anything built after, say, the early to mid 80s should be okay. And if you guys ever have any questions at all, you can snap a picture of a panel and text it to me, and I can tell you with a little bit of certainty if it's going to be okay or not.
Go ahead and give them your phone number because mine's
Oh,
up there.
Okay. Yeah, Marie's number is up there. Let me give you all my phone number. And of course, you can also reach out to Marie if you don't get it. My number is a 432 number.
Pat, maybe you can text it into the chat area, and that way it'll
Oh,
save
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
How do I do
Yeah,
that? That's a
please.
wonderful idea, Lee. Thank you.
I got you. Here you go.
There we are.
Type your phone number. Yep.
All right. Thank you. I didn't even think about that. This is my first Zoom call I've ever done.
There you go.
And that's Patrick White. There we go. Thank you, Marie.
Mhm.
Pat or Patrick, either one works just fine. I answer to both.
There you go.
Hey, Pat, this is Rob. How's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, man? I thought that looked like you.
Sorry, I've just been driving. I don't know if you have, I mean, Pat and I, we've been working together for a while now. And I mean, if you're a house flipper, I mean, if you do detail work like I do, you know, I mean, most of the times when I get parts to do, you know, to go check a house out for me, I just tell them to do the major stuff, you know. I mean, usually I care less about, you know, an outlet not working because, I mean, if I'm going to be touching the house anyways, if I'm going to be doing like, you know, new electrical or new plumbing, I mean, I care less of all those. Right now, I'm an average of about 2 or 3 houses every month right now. So it's like pretty busy. So it's never, I mean, since the last year, he's never been to any of his houses. So he's using an inspector right now, you know, to do most of the checks. So he does like a detail. Usually buys like houses that are mostly cosmetic, you know, mostly cosmetic jobs, like not where you have to go to the house, like, you know, to the studs. So he buys, I mean, mostly cosmetic stuff. So he uses inspector to do most of the before and after repair. So he gets the inspector to do like a detail